Sofia clutched the strap of her suitcase, casting a final glance at the care center that had been her only world for 19 years. The imposing gray stone structure held echoes of her childhood, moments of melancholy, but also bonds of affection and a resilience forged over time. Letting out a deep sigh, she turned on her heels and headed for the exit, her pulse racing, a mixture of unease and excitement bubbling within her at the unknown. On that bright day, Sofia was preparing to start an unprecedented chapter. Thanks to the mediation of the center's administrator, she had obtained a position as a household assistant at the residence of Ricardo Montero, an influential magnate in the construction sector. The offer had seemed like a distant dream, but now it was materializing before her. Upon arriving at the majestic property, Sofia was received by Lorenzo, the head steward who had served the Montero family for over 3 decades. His severe demeanor and scrutinizing gaze intimidated Sofia, who, nonetheless, maintained her composure, determined to prove her worth. Lorenzo showed her the areas of the residence with a distant formality, his sentences tinged with skepticism. "I trust you are aware of the demands this position entails," Lorenzo indicated, as they walked through the sumptuous corridors. "The Montero family is extremely rigorous and does not tolerate negligence." Sofia nodded, striving to hide her apprehension. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Lorenzo. I will do my utmost." The beginnings proved arduous. Lorenzo missed no opportunity to scrutinize her performance, pointing out any imperfection. Sofia felt the pressure intensify with each of Lorenzo's disapproving gestures, but she did not let herself be daunted. Her resolve was stronger than any reproach. Sofia rose each day before dawn, tackling her chores with exemplary dedication. She cleaned the rooms, took care of the common areas, and kept the kitchen spotless. Despite Lorenzo's constant remarks, she applied herself to learning and improving, absorbing every guideline on the optimal maintenance of the residence. One particularly tense morning, Sofia was polishing the bronze sconces in the grand hall when Lorenzo approached. "A mark was left on the main dining room table last night," he stated in a harsh voice. "That is unacceptable." Sofia held her breath, feeling the severity of Lorenzo's words. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lorenzo. I will be more careful." Lorenzo huffed, still disbelieving. "We'll see. Don't forget that this job demands excellence." Despite the difficulties, Sofia found moments of serenity during her work. The residence's garden, in particular, was an oasis where she could catch her breath and reflect. She allowed herself a few minutes, pause there, contemplating the floral varieties and listening to the bird song. It was in that environment that she regained her strength and reminded herself of her reason for being there: to build a more promising future for herself. That night, after a long day, Sofia lay down on the modest bed in her room at the residence, exhausted but with a sense of accomplishment for her progress. Although Lorenzo persisted as a critical and relentless figure, she was aware that she was assimilating knowledge and maturing day by day. Firm in her purpose to demonstrate her capability, she closed her eyelids, ready to face the challenges of the coming day. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Sofia was already on her feet, starting another day of chores at the Montero residence. Her goal was clear: to demonstrate that she could perform her duties masterfully, even under Lorenzo's constant scrutiny. The kitchen, one of the spaces where she most enjoyed working, was her sanctuary that morning. She meticulously cleaned the countertops, lost in thoughts about her future. While Sofia was engrossed in her tasks, she did not notice the approach of firm, confident footsteps. Ricardo Montero, the head of the family, had just returned from a long business trip. Exhaustion was etched on his face, but something deeper could be discerned in his eyes. A silent sadness, a burden he had carried in his soul since the loss of his daughter. Ricardo entered the kitchen looking for a glass of water, but what he saw left him momentarily frozen. Sofia had her back to him, absorbed in her work. But the heart-shaped pendant she wore around her neck immediately caught Ricardo's attention. It was impossible not to recognize that piece of jewelry. It was an exact replica of the one his daughter had been wearing the day she disappeared. "Excuse me," Ricardo articulated, trying to maintain his composure, though he felt a tightness in his throat. Sofia turned quickly, startled by the presence of the master of the house. "Good morning, Mr. Montero," she replied, trying to hide her agitation. Ricardo took a few steps towards her, his eyes fixed on the pendant. "That necklace. It's very unique. Have you had it long?" Sofia instinctively touched the necklace, a habitual gesture when she felt nervous. "Yes, sir. I've had this necklace for as long as I can remember. I grew up with it. It has always been with me. It's the only memento I have of my past." Ricardo experienced a wave of conflicting emotions. The similarity of the necklace to that of his lost daughter could not be a mere coincidence. He needed to find out more about Sofia, about her origins, and how that jewel had come into her possession. "Curious," Ricardo said, concealing the turmoil of his thoughts. "Well, I trust you are adapting well to the work here." "I am putting all my effort into it, Mr. Montero," Sofia replied, relieved to be having a cordial conversation, different from her interactions with Lorenzo. Ricardo nodded and headed to the refrigerator to get the water he had come for. But, in his mind, a whirlwind of conjectures was forming. He needed to investigate more about that young woman and the story behind that necklace. Later that day, Ricardo shut himself in his office and telephoned an old acquaintance, the owner of a prestigious private investigation agency. He briefly explained the situation, requesting a thorough investigation into Sofia's past. Something inside him told him that this young woman might be connected to his past in a way he had never imagined. Meanwhile, Sofia continued her routine, unaware of the storm that was about to break around her. The necklace around her neck, an emblem of her enigmatic past, now became the epicenter of a new investigation, one that could change her life forever. Ricardo was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Ricardo leaned back in his leather armchair in the study, the receiver still in his hand. The conversation with his investigator friend, Marcos, had been concise but laden with meaning. Marcos committed to starting the inquiries immediately and ensuring that every lead was examined with utmost diligence. Ricardo knew he couldn't leave any stone unturned in his quest to discover the truth about Sofia. Meanwhile, Sofia continued with her daily chores, oblivious to the investigation now revolving around her life. She followed her routine meticulously, determined to prove her worth, even in the face of Lorenzo's constant criticism. That same night, after the preliminary conversation with Marcos, Ricardo decided he could wait no longer. He needed certainty, and he knew that only a thorough investigation could provide it. He picked up the phone and called Marcos again, formalizing the investigator's hiring. "Marcos, I want you and your team to do whatever is necessary to find out everything about Sofia's past. Spare no effort or resources. We need answers quickly," Ricardo said firmly. "Don't worry, Ricardo. We'll start immediately. I'll keep you informed of any progress," Marcos replied, understanding the urgency and importance of the request. A few days later, Marcos contacted Ricardo to arrange a meeting. The urgency in his tone made Ricardo sense that something significant had been discovered. They met in a discreet cafe downtown, away from prying eyes. "Ricardo, my team has made significant progress," Marcos said, without preamble. "Sofia was found in a public park 17 years ago, when she was about 2 years old. She was admitted to a care center shortly thereafter, where she grew up until she recently left." Ricardo listened intently, feeling his pulse quicken. "And the necklace? Any clue as to who might have left her there?" Marcos shook his head. "Not yet, but we're reviewing all available records and interviewing anyone who might remember anything. The fact is, someone left her in the park with that necklace, and that doesn't seem to have been accidental." Ricardo took a deep breath, processing the information. "So, Sofia has lived without knowing anything about her past, without any idea who her parents are." "Exactly." The care center had no additional information about her, only that she was found in the park with the necklace. "We're trying to locate possible witnesses or any trace of who might have left her there." The thought of his lost daughter had never been so vivid in Ricardo's mind. Every detail of the investigation seemed to bring him closer to a revelation he both feared and longed for. He wondered how many times he had brushed against the truth without knowing it. "Keep investigating, Marcos. I need all possible answers. If Sofia is really my daughter, I can't let this opportunity pass," Ricardo said, the determination in his voice palpable. Marcos nodded, understanding the urgency and importance of the request. "We'll do our best, Ricardo. I'll keep you informed of any developments." Back at the mansion, Ricardo tried to remain calm, but his anxiety was evident. He watched Sofia from a distance, imagining how her life could drastically change soon. Every movement she made, every gesture, seemed to echo the memories of his lost daughter. One afternoon, while Sofia was tidying the library, Ricardo entered unexpectedly. She looked at him, surprised, but smiled shyly. "Can I help you with anything, Mr. Montero?" Ricardo hesitated for a moment. "No, I just wanted to see how your work is going. Are you adapting well?" "Yes, sir. I'm learning a lot and I appreciate the opportunity," Sofia replied sincerely. Ricardo watched the necklace glinting in the library light, feeling a tightness in his chest. "Keep it up, Sofia. You're doing a good job." As Ricardo withdrew, Sofia felt a strange premonition that something deeper was happening. The days passed slowly for Ricardo since the investigation into Sofia began. Each discovery by Detective Marcos seemed to bring him closer to a truth he both desired and feared. When Marcos finally called to schedule an urgent meeting, Ricardo knew the moment of revelation had arrived. Marcos arrived at the Montero mansion with a thick envelope in his hands. He was immediately led to Ricardo's study, where the businessman anxiously awaited him. "Ricardo, we've gathered all available information. There's no doubt that Sofia was found in a public park 17 years ago and taken to a care center. All records confirm this story. The necklace she wears is the only connection to her past," Marcos said, handing the envelope to Ricardo. Ricardo opened the envelope with trembling hands, meticulously reviewing the documents. Every detail matched the little information he had about his daughter's disappearance. He knew he needed to talk to Sofia immediately. "Thank you, Marcos. Now, I need to talk to her," Ricardo said, rising from his chair. Sofia was in the kitchen, finishing arranging the utensils when she was summoned by Lorenzo to Ricardo's study. Nervous, she headed there, not knowing what to expect. Upon entering the study, she found Ricardo sitting behind his desk, with a serious but kind expression. He invited her to sit opposite him. "Sofia, I need to talk to you about something very important," Ricardo began, trying to keep his voice steady. "Have you ever wondered about your past? About who your parents are?" Sofia nodded, curiosity and anxiety shining in her eyes. "Yes, sir. I've always wanted to know, but I never had any clues beyond this necklace." Ricardo took a deep breath before continuing. "This necklace, it belonged to my daughter, who disappeared 17 years ago. The information we have about you matches her disappearance. I believe there's a possibility that you are my daughter." Sofia fell silent, trying to process what she had just heard. The idea was both exciting and terrifying. "Are you saying that I could be your daughter?" "Yes, Sofia. But we need to be sure. I'd like us to do a DNA test to confirm paternity. That will give us a definitive answer." Sofia felt a whirlwind of emotions: hope, fear, disbelief. "Of course, sir. I'll do the test." Ricardo smiled, relieved by the positive response. "Very well. I'll arrange everything. I want you to know that, regardless of the outcome, you are very important to us here." The next day, Ricardo and Sofia went to a specialized laboratory to perform the DNA test. The procedure was quick, but the wait for the result seemed eternal. During those days, Ricardo tried to maintain normality in the mansion, but the tension was palpable. While they awaited the results, Ricardo watched Sofia with a mixture of hope and apprehension. He saw in her features of his lost daughter and couldn't shake the idea that fate had finally brought them together. Sofia, for her part, felt torn. The possibility of discovering her true origin was both thrilling and frightening. She wondered what her life would be like if Ricardo turned out to be her father, and how that would change everything around her. In the Montero mansion, the atmosphere was charged with expectation. Lorenzo watched everything from afar, distrustful of the changes this might bring. He knew that the confirmation of Sofia's paternity could drastically alter the dynamics in the house and possibly threaten his position. The following days were pure anxiety for everyone. Ricardo and Sofia tried to maintain their routine, but the wait for the DNA test result loomed over them like a shadow. Every phone call, every knock on the door made Ricardo's heart race. Finally, the day of revelation arrived. The laboratory called to inform them that the results were ready. Ricardo and Sofia went together to pick up the envelope containing the answer to the question that tormented them. Back in the mansion, in Ricardo's study, they opened the envelope with trembling hands, but they did not yet read the result. The moment of truth was about to arrive, and both knew that, regardless of what was written on that paper, their lives would never be the same. Ricardo and Sofia sat at the study table, the envelope containing the DNA test result between them. Ricardo's hands trembled as he held the envelope, and Sofia could feel the tension in the air. The moment of truth had arrived. "Let's open it together," Ricardo said, his voice trembling but full of determination. Sofia nodded, trying to contain the anxiety bubbling inside her. With a careful gesture, Ricardo tore open the envelope and extracted the document. His eyes scanned the printed words, and he felt the world stop for an instant. "Sofia," Ricardo began, his voice choked with emotion, "the result is positive. I am your father." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Sofia looked at Ricardo, trying to grasp the magnitude of that revelation. Tears began to stream down her face as she struggled to find words. "You are my daughter," Ricardo repeated, his voice now thick with emotion. He opened his arms and Sofia rushed to him, hugging him tightly. Both were crying, a mixture of relief and joy enveloping them. "I've finally found my family," Sofia whispered, feeling whole for the first time in her life. Ricardo held Sofia's face in his hands, his eyes filled with tears. "We have so much time to make up for, but I promise we'll do it together." The news spread quickly through the mansion, and Monica, Ricardo's wife, was the next to find out. When Ricardo told her about the confirmation, Monica was paralyzed for a moment before breaking into tears of happiness. "My daughter, our daughter," Monica said, rushing to hug Sofia. "I can't believe we finally found her." Monica's embrace was warm and welcoming, filling a void Sofia had always felt. Now she had a mother, someone who loved her deeply and was there to welcome her with an open heart. Joy took over the Montero mansion. The employees, who had watched the changes with curiosity and apprehension, now joined in the family's celebration. Lorenzo, the steward, watched from afar, trying to hide his true feelings about the situation. Sofia began to integrate more deeply into the Montero's life. Ricardo and Monica included her in all aspects of family life, from intimate dinners to discussions about the family businesses. The transition was not easy for Sofia, but her parents' unconditional support made everything more bearable. Ricardo, in turn, was determined to teach Sofia everything he knew about the family businesses. He knew it would be a challenge, but he also believed Sofia had the strength and determination needed to excel. "I want you to know, Sofia," Ricardo said in one of their conversations, "that I'm here to support you every step of the way. You are part of this family, and together we will build a bright future." Sofia nodded, feeling grateful and motivated. She knew the road ahead would be full of challenges, but she was also eager to learn and grow. With Ricardo and Monica by her side, she felt prepared to face any obstacle. Meanwhile, Lorenzo watched everything with growing unease. He knew Sofia's presence would change many things in the dynamics of the Montero family, and, consequently, in his own position in the house. His discontent began to grow, and he couldn't help but feel a touch of envy and fear about the future. The weeks following the revelation were a whirlwind of emotions and new routines for Sofia. She gradually adapted to life as a member of the Montero family, participating in daily activities and learning about the family businesses. The mansion, once a place of work, now transformed into a true home for her. One evening, during a quiet dinner, Ricardo and Sofia were talking about her childhood. Monica had already retired, leaving father and daughter to deepen their bond. "Sofia, there's something I've always wanted to know," Ricardo began, setting his fork aside. "Do you remember anything about the day you were found? Any memory that might help us better understand what happened?" Sofia frowned, trying to access the vague, fragmented memories of her childhood. "I was very young, but there's something I never forgot," she said slowly. "I remember a man. He took me to the park. I can't see his face clearly, but I remember he was nervous. He told me to stay there, that someone would come for me." Ricardo became pensive, his heart tightening at the thought of his little daughter being left alone in a park. "That man? Do you remember anything else about him? Any features? Anything that could help us identify him?" Sofia shook her head. "Not much, just that he was nervous and seemed to be in a hurry. I think he was wearing a hat, but it's all very confusing." Ricardo took Sofia's hand, determination forming in his eyes. "That's something. We're going to find out who he is and what really happened. I'm going to contact Detective Marcos again and ask him to investigate further." The next day, Ricardo contacted Marcos, explaining the new information Sofia had revealed. Marcos, always meticulous, assured him he would dedicate all necessary resources to follow this new lead. "I'm going to reopen the investigation focusing on that description, Ricardo. We'll check records, witnesses, and anyone who might remember something about that day in the park," Marcos said, noting all the details Ricardo shared. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Sofia felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief at finally sharing her memories and having Ricardo's support, but also anxiety about what these investigations might reveal. Lorenzo watched the movements with growing concern, his thoughts murky and filled with uncertainties about his future in the house. Marcos's investigation quickly began to bear fruit. He interviewed former employees of the care center and residents of the area near the park where Sofia was found. Gradually, fragments of information began to come together, forming a clearer, though still incomplete, picture. One afternoon, Ricardo received a call from Marcos. "Ricardo, I have some news. I managed to find a witness who remembers a man leaving a little girl in the park around that time. He couldn't see many details, but he confirmed the man was wearing a hat and seemed to be in a hurry." Ricardo felt a mixture of hope and unease. "That's good, Marcos. Keep investigating. We need to know who he was and why he left my daughter there." Marcos agreed and promised to continue following all leads. Meanwhile, Ricardo decided it was time to share this news with Sofia. He called her to his study and, together, they reviewed the new findings. "We're making progress, Sofia. Every little detail brings us closer to the truth," Ricardo said, holding her hand affectionately. "We're going to find out who did this and why. You deserve to know the whole truth." Sofia felt a wave of gratitude and determination. "Thank you, Dad. I know we'll discover the truth together." As the investigation continued, Sofia and Ricardo prepared to face any revelation that might arise. United in the search for truth, they knew that, regardless of what they discovered, they would face it together, further strengthening the bond they now shared. As the investigation progressed, the dynamic in the Montero mansion began to change. Sofia, now recognized as Ricardo's legitimate daughter, was becoming increasingly integrated into family life and the businesses. Monica had welcomed her with open arms, and Sofia's presence brought new joy to the home. However, not everyone shared this enthusiasm. Lorenzo, the lifelong steward, began to show signs of discontent. His expression, previously impassive, now revealed constant tension. He watched Sofia with a mixture of distrust and resentment. With each new responsibility she assumed in the family businesses, Lorenzo's unease grew. One day, Ricardo noticed Lorenzo's change in behavior. The steward was more abrupt and impatient, especially with Sofia. Ricardo decided it was time for a frank conversation. "Lorenzo, can we talk?" Ricardo called the steward to his study. Lorenzo entered, maintaining his rigid posture. "Yes, Mr. Montero, how can I help you?" Ricardo observed him for a moment before speaking. "I've noticed you've been different since Sofia joined us. I'd like to know if something is bothering you." Lorenzo hesitated, but his expression hardened. "Mr. Montero, I have served this family for over 30 years. I have always considered my loyalty unquestionable. But with Sofia's arrival, it seems everything has changed." Ricardo frowned. "Lorenzo, Sofia is my daughter. She has every right to be here and to be part of the family businesses. If there's something else bothering you, I need you to be frank with me." Lorenzo shook his head, avoiding Ricardo's gaze. "Nothing, sir. I'm just adjusting to the changes." Ricardo wasn't entirely convinced, but decided not to press further at that moment. However, he knew something deeper was at play. Lorenzo had always been a pillar of trust, but his recent attitude raised suspicions. Meanwhile, Marcos continued investigating. He was determined to uncover any connection between the man who left Sofia in the park and anyone else who might be involved. Ricardo maintained frequent contact with the detective, anxiously awaiting new information. The tension in the Montero mansion was palpable. Lorenzo, feeling his place threatened, began to act more erratically. Small mistakes in his daily tasks, sarcastic comments, and furtive glances became frequent. Sofia, though noticing the steward's behavior, remained focused on her responsibilities, determined not to let anything affect her new life. Ricardo knew the truth about Sofia's past was getting closer. He also knew he needed to be alert to any sign of betrayal within his own home. Lorenzo's true face was beginning to reveal itself, and Ricardo was determined to protect his family, whatever the cost. After a few weeks of investigations, Marcos called Ricardo with an urgent voice. "Ricardo, we need to meet. I've discovered something important about the man who left Sofia in the park." Ricardo felt a shiver down his spine. "I'm on my way, Marcos." In the detective's office, Marcos presented a detailed dossier. "Ricardo, my investigations led to a disturbing discovery. The man who left Sofia in the park 17 years ago was none other than Lorenzo, the steward." Ricardo was stunned. "Lorenzo? That's incredible. Do you have proof of this?" Marcos nodded and handed Ricardo a series of documents and photographs. Witnesses finally confirmed the man's identity, and old records show suspicious connections between Lorenzo and the events surrounding your daughter's disappearance. Back at the mansion, Ricardo felt anger and betrayal burning inside him. He called Lorenzo to his office, holding the evidence with trembling hands. "Lorenzo, we need to talk, now," Ricardo said, his voice firm. Lorenzo entered, maintaining a facade of calm, but Ricardo could see the nervousness in his eyes. "Yes, Mr. Montero, how can I help?" Ricardo threw the evidence on the table between them. "Explain this to me, Lorenzo. Explain how you could do this to my family." Lorenzo looked at the documents and the blood drained from his face. "Mr. Montero, I can explain." "There's no explanation that justifies what you did," Ricardo shouted, his anger overflowing. "You took my daughter, left her alone in a park. Why?" Lorenzo finally broke down, his defenses shattered. I was desperate. When I learned your daughter was born, I feared losing my place here. I always thought that, without heirs, you would leave me everything. I did something terrible, and I regret it every day." Ricardo looked at Lorenzo, pain and fury mixed in his expression. You destroyed our lives, Lorenzo. I trusted you. Forgive me, mister. Ricardo, I didn't do it with malicious intent, Lorenzo said. Ricardo, with a whirlwind of emotions knowing the whole truth, decided to call his lawyer so they could go to a police station together. Ricardo and his lawyer, Dr. Bermudez, gathered all the evidence against Lorenzo and headed to the police station. The weight of the recent revelations was still fresh in their minds, but Ricardo knew he couldn't delay seeking justice any longer. At the station, they were received by Chief Inspector Vargas, a man of severe but fair appearance. Dr. Bermudez presented the documents and evidence incriminating Lorenzo. Inspector Vargas, we have conclusive proof that Lorenzo, the Montero family's steward, was responsible for the disappearance of Ricardo's daughter 17 years ago, Dr. Bermudez explained, handing the dossier to the inspector. The inspector leafed through the documents, examining photos, testimonies, and records. His expression hardened as he understood the gravity of the case. These are very serious accusations. We will proceed with the arrest immediately. I need Mr. Montero to be prepared to formalize the complaint. I'm ready to do whatever is necessary, Ricardo replied, with unwavering determination in his voice. Back at the mansion, the tension was palpable. Lorenzo was visibly nervous, aware that something was about to happen. When the police arrived, he tried to maintain his composure, but his eyes betrayed his growing fear. Mr. Lorenzo is under arrest for the kidnapping of Mr. Montero's daughter, Inspector Vargas announced. You have the right to remain silent, but anything you say can and will be used against you in court. Lorenzo did not resist arrest. The handcuffs on his wrists seemed to seal his fate. As he was led to the patrol car, he looked at Ricardo with eyes full of remorse and fear. Ricardo, I'm so sorry, Lorenzo stammered. I thought I was protecting my future, but I ended up destroying yours. I did this because I was afraid of losing my place here, my livelihood. When your daughter was born, I knew everything would change. I acted out of desperation, not malice. Ricardo stood firm, though Lorenzo's words touched a part of his compassion. Lorenzo, your desperation doesn't justify what you did. You destroyed our lives. Now, justice will be done. At the station, Lorenzo was formally interrogated and confessed his crimes in detail, explaining his motivations and the fear that led him to act so cruelly. His confessions were recorded, and he was transferred to prison, where he would await trial. Ricardo returned home with a mixture of relief and sadness. The betrayal by someone he trusted deeply left a painful scar, but there was also a feeling of justice being restored. Sofia, upon learning of Lorenzo's arrest, felt a whirlwind of emotions. The truth had finally come to light, but the path to it had been filled with pain and bitter revelations. That night, Ricardo, Monica, and Sofia gathered in the living room, hugging and finding comfort in each other's presence. The Montero mansion, which for so long had harbored secrets and betrayals, now began to transform into a true home, where truth and love prevailed. Let's move forward, Ricardo said, looking at his wife and daughter. Together, as a family, nothing will separate us anymore. Lorenzo's imprisonment marked the end of a somber chapter in the life of the Montero family. With the truth finally revealed and justice being served, Ricardo, Monica, and Sofia were determined to move on and make up for lost time. The atmosphere in the mansion began to change, shifting from constant tension to an atmosphere of hope and renewal. In the days that followed, Ricardo made the decision to spend more time with his family. He reduced his working hours, delegating more responsibilities to his trusted executives. Sofia, for her part, continued to integrate into the family businesses, but now with a new purpose: to strengthen family ties. Every morning, the family gathered for breakfast, a moment they rarely shared before due to busy schedules. Conversations were light and full of laughter, with Ricardo and Monica delighting in hearing Sofia's childhood stories from the care center and her dreams for the future. I want to learn everything about the family businesses, Dad, Sofia said one of those mornings. But I also want us to have time to get to know each other better. Ricardo smiled, moved by his daughter's sincerity. Of course, dear. We'll balance everything. I want you to feel part of every aspect of our lives. Afternoons were often spent in the mansion's garden, where Sofia and Monica tended to the flowers and planned new flower beds. The garden, which had always been beautiful, now bloomed as never before, reflecting the family's new energy. "This place is more beautiful every day," Monica commented, as she planted new flowers beside Sofia. "And I feel that's a reflection of what we're building together." Sofia smiled, feeling truly at home. "I'm so happy to be here with you. I never thought I'd find my family, and so much love besides." In the evenings, the family gathered in the living room to watch movies, play board games, or simply chat. Ricardo and Monica shared stories of their youth, and Sofia reveled in hearing every detail, feeling more connected to her parents each day. In one of those moments, Ricardo made a suggestion that brought tears to everyone's eyes. "Let's take a family trip. Something we've always wanted to do, but never had the chance." Monica agreed immediately. "That would be wonderful. We can go somewhere special, where we can create new memories." Sofia was enthusiastic about the idea. "I'd love that. We can explore new places and enjoy every moment together." With the trip planned, the family began to organize every detail. The anticipation of new adventures together brought additional joy to the Montero mansion. Planning the trip was as exciting as the prospect of traveling itself, and each family member contributed ideas and wishes. The Montero mansion, once marked by secrets and tensions, now resonated with laughter and love. The corridors that had witnessed years of loneliness and sadness now vibrated with life and happiness. The painful past was being replaced by a present full of promise and a future full of hope. "We're building something wonderful here," Ricardo said, holding Monica's and Sofia's hands as they looked at the moonlit garden. "A home full of love and joy." Sofia looked at her parents with gratitude. "And I'm so grateful to be here, with you. We're going to make every day count." With that promise, the Montero family prepared for a bright future, united by love and the determination to make the most of every moment together. The mansion, now a true home, was a symbol of resilience and the ability to transform pain into happiness, showing that, together, they could overcome any challenge and build a life full of joy and hope.